Happy October, American Conference fans, as we work into a brand new month and a brand new episode of All-American here from Studio A alongside Morgan Uber. I'm Kyle Youmans. It's crazy that we're already working into October. The college football season is in full swing. Athletics is in full swing, and I cannot wait to talk about this Week 6 slate coming up. But we've got some Week 5 to talk about initially. Morgan, great to be back with you again.
Yeah, Kyle, great to be here with you, and I can't believe it. This is the time where it's, almost crossover season. Crazy to be thinking, we're going to have basketball surrounding us here soon, but really, we're in the thick of conference play now. Things heating up in the American Athletic Conference, and I can't wait to break it all down with you today.
Basketball Media Days is right around the corner. I know Zach and Matt in the back are excited about that opportunity and seeing that starting to take a step forward, but hey, we've got gridiron football to talk about. Here's what the standings look like through Week 5 of the college football season, and the American Athletic Conference is being led by two schools, the Army Black Knights and the Navy Midshipmen. 3-0 in conference play. Both teams 4-0 for the first time since 1945, followed by the North Texas Mean Green, Tulane, East Carolina, Charlotte 49ers as the four other schools that remain unbeaten in conference play so far. When you take a look at this list, Morgan, what's the first thing that stands out to you?
Well, you bring up the 1945 year. I want to circle back to that. That year, Army finished number 1 in the country, okay? And Navy finished number 3. And that Army-Navy game was labeled the game of the century. So I think we have a pretty good one potentially brewing in December that I'm certainly looking forward to. But, you see a lot of teams that they're really starting to create some separation, I think, in this conference. Tulane getting that big win over South Florida that we'll be breaking down later. But definitely these standings, hey, it's just the start. And I do think with one of the things with Army and Navy, the opportunity that they also have to be playing a team like Notre Dame, when they play the Fighting Irish, they have an opportunity to be ranked in that top 25. And that is just going to continue to boost the entire conference, with the rankings and how everything will shake out with this new expanded 12-team playoff. So
it's been so impressive seeing these two teams, these two organizations have the success that they have throughout the first month of the season. The fact that they're both 4-0 in this transfer portal-led, NIL-led era of college football. There were critics along the way for Army and Navy in that is saying that they probably, as military academies, aren't going to be able to keep up with the transfer portal, with NIL initiatives. But they're showing right now that that's not the case, Morgan, and that they can field not only a good football team, but a brotherhood and something that could turn into being something really special as the year goes on.
I think what you have are two programs, Army and Navy, that are uncommon, right? These kids, these men and women that commit to go to Army and Navy, they are uncommon in what they're going to be doing with the future of our country. And they're also uncommon with the way that they're winning right now. And what they're doing, I think it just transcends everything. There's so much negative talked about when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal, but it's the reverse with Army and Navy. What they're doing, player development. These kids are committing at 17, 18 years old, coming to these military academies, some with no backgrounds of having, any military in their family, unsure. Like we'll be talking to Bryson Daly later on in the show, one guy who no military in his family, unsure of what he was going to get into, but then comes here and thrives in this brotherhood and committing to a team with shared values. I think the recruiting aspect of, what Army and Navy are having to do, finding these young men that are willing to play something bigger than themselves. And you're finding locker rooms right now that are, again, it's that shared value system. You're not having guys come in making millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think we're seeing the success right now of what really a true team culture can create, and the education that they get at the academies, unlike anything else. These kids literally learning how these military tactics, right, of how they're going to defend our country and being able to put others before themselves in this era of college sports. It really makes me happy, as someone who has covered Army and Navy since 2016. I covered them back in my days at the Patriot League, and going to West Point, going to Annapolis and being there talking to those student athletes, it's different. And it really makes me happy to see them having this success. And I want to bring in right now the voice of Army football, Rich DeMarco, who has been there 2 decades now at Army. He started as a sideline reporter. Now he's the play-by-play for Army. And Rich, you've seen all of these changes transpire over these past 2 decades, but the biggest changes really over these past 3 years. What's it been like from your perspective to see all of this unfold and the success that your team is having this season?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Morgan. Great to be back with you and remember you fondly from your time at the Patriot League. You did a terrific job. Great being with you here on this show. I know you'll be moving on soon. So great to be on this last one for you.
Thank you. So happy to have you.
So now number 2. So let's look at Army. And, you look at what Army's been able to do, right? And you look at the last 2 years, and Army started slow both seasons, ended both seasons with winning streaks, right? 2022, 2023. 2023, a little bit of a different offense. Went from the shotgun really the whole year. Army back to under center this year. So you're back to where you expected to see Army in the 2016, 2017, 2018, 2020, when Army was among the nation's leaders in rushing and really pounding the football. I think I wouldn't call it surprise this year, but the great bright spot this year has been the Army defense. And traditionally it's been strong, but a lot of new faces on that defense, especially in the secondary. And Army is playing just so well on the defensive side of the ball. And when you look at it, giving up merely 10 points per game. And I think the offense has this confidence that it takes me back to the 11-win season in 2018, when you knew that when Army had the football, the defense knew exactly what was going to happen, and Army was still able to, just bring the ball right down the field and give it right to the defense. And that's just been great to see. It's been a bit of a throwback. I think the biggest change in Army's offense this year, if you want to call it that, has been the quick strike capability, whether it's been Noah Short on the edge with, 45, 47, 25-yard runs, or Army's ability and Bryson Daly's ability to throw the football downfield and hit a couple quick strike touchdowns. And I was talking to a number of people just about Bryson Daly and the combination of really the three main things for this Army offense: running the ball, pitching the ball, and throwing the ball. You could look over the Jeff Monken era that maybe there are quarterbacks that did each of those things better than Bryson, but the combination of his talent in all three, and then you add into it his toughness and his grit, he's a player we haven't seen the likes of. And you bring up the 1945 season, Army and Navy, last time both 4-0. I think you can make a really strong argument, and just look at the stats, just look at the final scores. The 1945 Army football team might be the greatest team in the history of college football, but that's a conversation for another show, another day. But it's been a great and special start to the season.
Yeah, and it really is fun to see both of those organizations, Army, Navy, having the success that they've had. And you've been around that rivalry for quite some time, and there's never any love lost between the two, right? I mean, it is a full-blooded rivalry through and through. How much does this ramp things up, the fact that both Army and Navy are having the start to the season that they have?
Well, it's interesting. When Army joined the American Athletic Conference, and it seems like just under a year ago, right? It was last October, right? Exactly a year ago. Army joined the AAC, and this possibility was talked about of maybe playing in the AAC championship game and then the Army-Navy game. And heck, we're a long way off from that. But my response was to anyone who thought that was odd was, hey, if that happens, it would mean Army and Navy are having two very, very special seasons. So while we're a long way off from Army and Navy playing on December 6th and December 14th, it's really cool to have special starts for Army and Navy and be able to even talk about this possibility. Because as I like to say, we could talk about the college football playoff and the SEC and the Big Ten and all the big time teams, the Power Four and all that. But I believe that, when the service academies are competitive, they reserve their own special, shelf in college football. And I think the sport has always been better when the service academy teams have been competitive and have been good.
It is pretty crazy to think here at the end of the season we could see those teams. There's a potential playing in back-to-back weeks.
That would be awesome.
Would
be so fun.
We've got a lot of football, though, Rich, left until then. But I want to circle back to just the start of the season, right? Like, you look at what they've done, beating Lehigh, probably not much of a surprise. Florida Atlantic, early conference game to get the year going. And then they have the bye, followed by Rice and Temple, and outscoring opponents right now. Plus 103. It's crazy what this offense is doing. When you look at, the first 4 games of the year, what impresses you most? Which win was most impressive in your eyes?
Well, that's a good question. Which win was most impressive? But I'll tell you what I look at is the workman-like effort it's been every week for Army, and the way that Army's just got out there and taken care of business. I think probably the most impressive win, and really nothing to do with other than, the situation Army was in, was that Florida Atlantic win, coming off the victory against Lehigh, having to go on the road, play a noon game in all black uniforms, 90 degrees, first road game of the season. That was quite impressive to go down there and dominate the way Army did against Florida Atlantic. Of course, the last 2 games against Rice and Temple have been terrific, but I think there was, I wouldn't call it a surprise, but an impressive way the FAU game went, where maybe the last 2 performances have been maybe not expected, but haven't been as a surprise. The way Army went down to FAU and dominated in week 2, I think kind of put everyone on notice that, hey, this is a different Army offense back under center that could really power people, chew up the clock, and do what, was done, all the time when Army was, winning 10, 11 games.
I have a question for you, though, and I mean, you got to be real with me here. Is there a real worry on the fact that Army only plays good football against Owls? Against the mascot team Owls, Florida Atlantic, Rice, Temple. You run the Owl gauntlet. You get things taken care of. You push them out of the way. I don't know what a mountain hawk is. I know that's what Lehigh is.
It's a bird, though. It's still a bird.
I mean, it's still a bird. So, I mean, you've got the Dragons, you've got the Hurricane, and the Pirates coming up. Any worry of the fact that it's not a bird mascot on the opposite sideline?
I'll tell you a little bit. I was looking at the 3 Owl games, and I'm like, is it going to be 3-0, 2-1? I will tell you, it is great to be back with a lot of these programs in the American, which we knew from the independent days and the Conference USA days and everything. And it's going to be great hooking up with East Carolina in a couple weeks, like you mentioned, UAB and Tulsa. And the interesting thing with Tulsa is the only other meeting between Army and Tulsa, one of the most entertaining football games I've ever worked here at Army, was in 2007. It was late in the season, a high-scoring game. And that's the only time Army's faced the Golden Hurricane. Hopefully we have another good one on Saturday.
I can't wait for it. The next bird you end up facing is in Week 11 against North Texas. They're technically the mean green, but they have a bird in the logo, so maybe that's another opportunity to keep the bird gauntlet rolling. I want to talk about Bryson Daly, and we'll have a chance to catch up with him later in the show. Really excited to have him on as well. He just appears to be having fun, and these guys rally around him. He plays such a fun brand of football on the ground, able to open up the passing attack in a big way at times for this offense, which I think just adds another element to their playbook. How much does this team rally around what Daly brings to the field?
Daly's one of the players. He connects with every position group, every kind of player on the team. Here's someone who was recruited as a linebacker, right? He had offers to play linebacker at the FBS level, right? Came to Army to play quarterback. He likes to lift weights with the offensive linemen, right? They consider him like one of them. He's someone who can run the ball so well that the fullbacks and slot backs think he's one of them. He is just a gamer in every sense of the word. And you mentioned having fun. I think it's just his happy place is being on the football field and trying to figure out ways to move the ball down the field. And he's someone who, when you talk to him, and not saying others haven't, because they have, obviously, and Army's been, had such success over the last 10 years, but he really takes on the responsibility of being an Army football player, the Army football quarterback, and everything that entails. And I think the rest of the nation is getting a taste, is getting a look at, the grit, the way Army plays. And then also a quarterback who can do it all and is just tough as nails.
having a guy like Cody Worley who's been around the program, but then gets promoted to the quarterback's coach and run game coordinator, for him to have that sort of consistency, but then for him to be elevated to in this position, what dimension do you think he's really brought out in Daly's game specifically and the offense as a whole?
Well, I think, and you bring up that's a great question about Cody Worley. And you look at the last several years, Cody Worley has been on staff. Army was in the under center option based offense, through 2022. So Cody Worley saw that. Then last year, Army working out of the shotgun, and Cody Worley got to call plays for the Coastal Carolina game in November when Army went back under center for that game. And I like to think Cody Worley has taken all of those experiences, the under center experience, the fullback, heavy, big fullback experiences, the shotgun, having a quarterback like Bryson that can kind of do it all. And it's kind of picked from all those different schemes and those formations and those talent sets that Army's had and put it all together as offensive coordinator. And I think it takes humility to be able to do that, to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to look at all the things I've learned from different people and, put it all together. And I think Army's shown an offense this year that while, it's going to contradict what I said earlier, while they're running the ball down your throat, they're chewing up the clock, they're doing all the things we expect about Army football, there is some elements of surprise in this offense, whether it's the quick strike throwing the football, the pitches to the outside and Noah Short, where he's kept it churning, but kept it a little fresh.
All right, Rich, you talk about an element of surprise, an element of something that you see to be true, but it's a little bit of a surprise still whenever you see it. I've always had a high respect for you as an announcer. I think your calls are fantastic. But I learned something about you mere moments before we got started in the show, that you were also the PA announcer for EA Sports College Football 25. Is this true? And how have I not understood this to be the case until just now?
It is true. And hey, you know what? The PA guy, I'm in the background.
Okay,
right?
but
you got to go to the settings and turn, broadcast down. You put the stadium.
That's the first thing I'm going to do.
You're still in the game.
Can you give me
great experience, great people at EA.
Sports,
I can't.
It's in the game. Can you say that? Or I say I'm in the game. Can you do that for me?
I'll tell you, I can't say enough good things about the folks at EA. It's the kind of opportunity that when it comes to you, as I said to others, like, how do you say no to that? Like, that's everyone's dream, to be in a video game and to be in EA Sports College Football. Come on. Great people to work with. And it was a lot of fun. Had to keep it under wraps for a while. And then kind of came out in March and everything. And it's been awesome. Can't wait to work on next year. So it's going to be it's a great experience. Great people at EA to work with.
How often do you play the game?
One of my kids plays it every single day. I've hardly played it, to be honest with you, but we go through the stadiums and, he likes the little idiosyncrasies of the uniforms. And then he's gotten into that team builder, I believe it is, where you can just pick these like random looking teams. They have these odd fields and it's such a great game. And, I just a shout out to those kinds of things that, when I was a kid, I was always reading football almanacs, reading different things to learn about the history of the sport. The kids now, like my kids, they learn so much about the history of college football and NFL football through these video games.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just a great vehicle in understanding the game. Like, I didn't know what, two high safeties was when I was 10 years old, but my kids can see that now and they know it. And, kind of talking it through with them. So it's great for the family. And it's just a little, it's a piece of trivia that'll, you can just throw out.
That is so cool. And I can tell you from experience, I mean, my love for college football stemmed from going to games with my dad as a kid. So the connection with your father. And then also the fact that I played the video game as much as I did when I was growing up. I mean, it was my favorite game growing up. The fact that it's back after 11 years was huge. But I have two questions for you. The first one is, which one do you think is more? The amount of time and the amount of effort that you put into saying all those lines and recording the PA voice, or the amount of time that I've spent on my couch playing the game? Which one do you feel like is more time?
I would say recording it. It was
how many hours?
It took a few months. It was probably close to 40. It wasn't nearly as much as the commentators that were putting in hundreds of hours, but it was a lot of fun and had some good times with it. We're able to work on a couple unique things, different stadiums and different fan experiences, and just hoping to build on them in the future. And it's just, again, so much fun. And, the people, I'll tell you what, if you ever get in touch or cross paths with people from EA. Those are some passionate folks
Yeah.
who love college football. They love the game, and just an honor to be part of it.
And then the last one for me, real quickly, give me one example of a line that you read going into it. Maybe your favorite line of what you read during your time of recording these segments.
Touchdown, Army.
I like it. I like it.
Well, I was going to ask you, Rich, you talk about seeing all the different stadiums and going through all that, watching your son play, for you to just, someone that's never been to Mikey Stadium. I mean, I've been there. You've obviously spent a lot of time there. But a game day at Mikey Stadium, how do you put into words what that looks like for people who have never been?
You truly have to experience it, Morgan, and you're 100% right. And I would go to Army football games as a kid with my parents, right? You start early with the parade down on the plain. You see the cadets in formation, make it up to the stadium. Now we have a fan fest, which wasn't the case, 40 years ago when I was going to games. And then, enjoy the game, the pregame with the parachuters, the march on the field. And then, of course, after the game, the playing of the alma mater. I really, it's one of those events, people say bucket list. It's just one of those things where I think when you're at an Army football game, Army, Navy specifically, we could argue a lot about college football and what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And I think when you're at an Army football game, and most definitely an Army Navy game, it's just 3 hours to just focus on what's great about college football. And I think Army and Navy both being 4-0 are kind of validating that, hey, you can be a throwback program, have the kind of game day and the kind of, I don't know if it's values, but at least the structure of what college football was, and just the love of playing the game and doing it for a higher purpose. You can really take that in, and I think appreciate and respect that when you watch a service academy team.
I can attest there's no football game that will ever come close to experiencing an Army-Navy game. I had the opportunity to go with my dad a few years ago. But, Rich, we appreciate your time, your expertise, knowledge. Thank you so much for coming on and talking some Army football with us, and excited to see what this team can accomplish the rest of the way.
Thanks, guys, for having me, Morgan. Best of luck in the future. We'll cross paths soon.
Yes. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
I can't believe that we were in the presence of greatness
right?
there. The PA announcer for College Football 25. Love it overall. Now, there's been some greatness being shown from the Navy midshipmen as well. How about 4 straight wins? We just talked about kind of that growing sense that this could be worth a lot more than just bragging rights in the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. Moving into a 4-0 start for Army and Navy. And Navy, of course, going up against UAB this week, Morgan. There's a lot on the line for this Navy squad, but at the same time, they're going up against a desperate UAB team, and they took care of business the way that they did, winning and putting up 41 points.
Yeah, you mentioned UAB. I mean, Jacob Zeno, their quarterback, he's extremely accurate, but, I think Navy, you made the point last week, Kyle. You came on record and said, Horvath for Heisman.
I did.
You got it trending. Blake Horvath, by the way, is the first player with 7+ passing TDs and 7+ rushing TDs through the team's first 4 games since Lamar Jackson back in 2016. And, oh, by the way, Jackson won the Heisman that year. So I think you might have been making a pretty big statement there, but those numbers, they back it up.
Listen. I know it's different competition. I know it's different teams. I know it's a different year. But what Blake Horvath is doing at Navy, and what Bryson Daly is doing at Army, and we'll talk about him being in that Heisman conversation as well as maybe a dark horse contender. Both of these quarterbacks are doing special things for the military academies and the way that they're playing so far. If I had a Heisman vote, he may not be number 1. I think that might be Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, the running back who's just been off to an absolute tear. If Jeanty's not in the conversation, I would put both Daly and Horvath in that conversation, and especially the way that that Blake Horvath can throw the football to. It's so dangerous, and I think that they showed that against UAB, putting the passing game together and putting 41 points on the board, too.
I mean, the way that he did it, too, right? Leading Navy's rushing attack, finishing with 84 yards, but then 2 explosive passes. That 77-yard pass to Nathan Kent, racing untouched those final 35 yards, and then the 74-yard pass to Eli Heidenreich, who has been a top target for him this year on the first possession, out of the third quarter. So, the way that they're just – the explosiveness that we're seeing in this hybrid wing tee. We talked so much about it last last week.
The sling tee.
Yes, the modernized sling tee. What is it to you, I guess, that has really stood out, and even bringing up some of the conversations that we had last week, having their voice, Pete, on with us, what is it about this offense that's most impressive to you in the way that they're just continuing to roll?
It's the efficiency. It's the way that they're able to throw 11 times and complete 9 passes. Usually when you see a wing tee, a gun option, one of these triple option ball clubs, if they want to throw the football, they can't do it effectively. They're usually 2 of 7 passing for 25 yards and whatever it may be. No, 9 of 11 passing. He's got 225 yards on the ground, or through the air, for 84 yards on the ground, 3 total touchdowns. They throw the ball just as effectively as they run it. And if you're a physical offensive line that can run the ball the way that Navy can, and that you can see the passing prowess here, if you can combine those teams, how do you plan against it? And I think Memphis showed that 2 weeks ago when the Memphis defense, who held Florida State to 13 points or 12 points, whatever it was, they were able to hold some of these other ball clubs to minimal gains in terms of the passing gains. They had a shutout against North Alabama, 17 points against Troy. They give up 56 points to Navy, and that's why, because defenses don't know how to adjust to the efficiency on offense and the way that they can run the football effectively behind a big, nasty offensive line, and it really is. It shows just how talented this team is, and I don't think they're done yet. They're going to keep on elevating and getting better as the year goes on.
Yeah, that average really jumped off the screen to me, 20 and a half, yards. That's insane. So now this week, it's that first leg of the Commanders and Chiefs trophy, right? They get to face a struggling Air Force who Navy hasn't won there. You got to go all the way back to 2012. But this year, I think they have some magic and talent in the air where they're going to be able to come out on top. I mean, this is an Air Force team right now that of 133 teams in the FBS, they're 131 in terms of yards per game on offense, only averaging 243 yards.
Yeah,
so.
and most of that's on the ground, too. And in order to win the ground game against Navy, you have to control the line of scrimmage, and I just don't see Air Force doing that. Now, the one thing I will say, and you can say this about any of the service academies whenever they face up against each other, throw the records, throw the stats, throw all of it out the window, because at the time of meeting, nothing else matters. This is a team in Air Force that wants to beat 2 squads, Army and Navy. That's the 2 teams that Air Force wants to do. They're kind of the forgotten ball club out of that trio of the Commander-in-Chief trophy because of how good the other 2 have been so far. Throw those out the window. They're going to play their best game of the year. Expect that if you're Navy. And if they do, which I believe they will, I think the midshipmen should win this far and away. It's going to be 2 teams that want to run the football effectively. Only one team that has been able to run the football effectively, and that's Navy. And they have a better offensive and defensive line. I think they'll control the line of scrimmage, and they'll get the job done coming up on Saturday.
Well, yeah, you think about Air Force last year. They were having a stellar season, and then Army goes in and ends up winning 23-3.
Yep.
And, I mean, Army, you bring it up. It's the point that records don't matter. Nothing matters. And these teams, they all sort of play a similar style of football in their own each individual way, right? So they know how to prepare for one another. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be maybe closer than people can expect. But, yeah, no doubt the Mids are my pick in that one.
I don't know what the line is, and I haven't even looked that far ahead. I do my Twitter predictions every Saturday morning. I kind of go through, preview, predict all the American Conference matchups. I'm excited to see what it looks like going into the weekend, because I would be shocked if Navy is even able to cover in that regard. I think it's a tough matchup, and they're going to have to keep on rolling up until that final whistle in order to get the job done.
Well, you bring up your picks, and I feel like you did that for some sly reason. How were you in this past week 5?
I was 6-2. 6-2. I got a little cute, and honestly, I apologize to the Navy midshipmen. I would like to if we could take the one shot for me here, Matt, if we could do that. I'm sorry, Navy, for picking UAB. I thought you were in exam week. You were coming off a big win against Memphis. You were going on the road in Birmingham. I thought Trent Dilfer's team would be better going into the week. But from the deep, darkest parts of my heart, I apologize for picking against you, and I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to pick against you this week, or probably anytime soon, because you're a good football team, and Blake Horvath should be in the Heisman conversation. So I just wanted to apologize face-to-face with the Navy midshipmen out there. You did your job. I didn't do my job, and it was one of the 2 games out of the 8 this week that I got wrong.
Well, hopefully they accept your apology, but
I wouldn't blame them if they didn't.
well,
it's part of it.
I think November 16th is setting up to be a massive showdown. Tulane at Navy.
Yeah.
That could really be the game of the year. I'm curious who you're going to end up picking that week.
Probably Navy, just because I'm sad that I got it wrong this week. That's all.
It's
going to last all the way until November 16th.
Well, speaking of Tulane, let's dive into their matchup this past weekend against South Florida. This is one that I said I had my eyes on and really thought it was going to be a close game, but we saw how that one went.
Yeah, and John Summerall has no apologies for anybody. He said Barstool UCF, saying that it was pathetic. USF, sorry, different team, bad team. Tulane, the fact that they were trying to call him out, they were trying to say it was pathetic that he was hyping up his squad pregame, and he said, you know what? You know what's not pathetic? How about winning? That's not pathetic, and he did so. He said, "Good."
Quote tweet. Good.
I love it.
Yeah,
very well done.
The only thing it was missing was a period on the end of good. I think that would have been the only thing that could have made that better.
Let a 45-10 win do its own speaking, right, and do its own talking, and that was exactly what it was. What was the biggest thing that stood out for you? The fact that the defense was as clean as it was, or that the offense was firing on all cylinders, especially in that first half?
Well, I think both of those. I think it was what stood out from that game was how complete they played and the complementary style of football. I mean, by far and away, that was the most complementary game that Tulane has played this season. And John Summerall said it best in his press conference. He said, "This is the first time our team has found a sense of cohesion." And when you look at Tulane's defense, when John Summerall got there in December, there were 7 players right now that are starting on that defense that weren't there in December.
Yeah.
So think about, right, in this era of the transfer portal, we talk about it, every week. These guys are trying to find that cohesion. They're teammates for the first time. They're getting to know these guys on and off the field, each other's tendencies. But this defense was extremely impressive. I think they found their chemistry and everything about it. On the opposite side of things, Mensa just looked as efficient could be. 18 of 22, passing for 326 yards and 3 TDs. 2 of those in less than 3 minutes to Mario Williams. But I think it was because of the style that South Florida played in that game. They were aggressive in the box, and it gave him opportunities to take some big shots downfield. But it was also impressive that Mensa, I thought he was really smart in his decision-making, where he tucked the ball a couple of times to get a first down on a scramble. So you can continue to see Mensa, his first year as a starting quarterback, really just taking command of this offense and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I think he also saw a little bit of relief in the fact that he's like, oh, I don't have to face Oklahoma or Kansas State's defense this week. This is fun. I like this.
But South Florida, we were still pretty high on.
Absolutely. And I thought South Florida was underachieving in terms of expectations. They had no answer. They had no answer for the defensive presence. They had no answer, especially for the play-action game. And when it comes to Darian Mensah, if the rushing attack is efficient, then that means play action is set up to have success. And if he can have the play action game and that West Coast offense predicated off of the play action, he's going to be good at quarterback. And that's what happened. In the West Coast offense, it's a lot about spreading things out to your receivers, getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers, 15 yards it in. You're not throwing downfield. You're not trying the deep bomb every once in a while. You will, but that's not what the West Coast offense is all about. It's all about short, efficient routes, high percentage of completion, and then continuing to work with yards after the catch and utilizing your weapons and the speed and athleticism that they have. Darian Mensah showed on Saturday that whenever he's able to complete those passes, get into a rhythm, it helps set up the run game, play action, and the passing game. It all worked to perfection. It clicked in the first half. And I said there was no answer. The only reason that Tulane even gave up 7 points in that first half was because of the big plays in the final 2 minutes of the second quarter. It should have been 31-0 at halftime, and it might have been worse. Tulane is a top 10 contender, or not even a top 10. That's a dumb saying. Probably a top 2 or 3 contender in the American Conference standings right now to be in that conversation. They have one of the nation's longest conference win streaks. I believe it's 5th longest active in the country right now. they continue to stack good things one after the other, and I think their quarterback's a big part of that, but I also think it's the game plan and what John Summerall has cooking down in New Orleans.
I loved what Summerall said in his post-game press conference. It was pretty simple, right? He said he challenged his players to do simple better. And I think we saw that come out on both sides of the ball, right? The defense, I mean, just in terms of their tackling, making those good plays, guys flying to the ball, all 11 guys on the field just operating as one unit. And so much of what you talked about with Mensa and the play action, the pass game, the run game, everything being able to come together at the right time. So I think, again, yeah, Tulane, in my eyes, it's, Army and Navy, both undefeated, 3-0 in conference play. Tulane, Memphis, and then kind of everybody else right now. And I'm waiting to see a team in the American, step up and really challenge one of those top three teams.
You have some challengers. You've got different tiers. I think right now it's the service academies, Memphis, Tulane as your top tier of teams. Then you've got the challengers tier, which those are the North Texases, the ECUs. This is the remaining schedule for Tulane. They're going to have to go on the road against North Texas. That's not an easy game. You've got that November 16th matchup, Morgan, that you just mentioned as a heavyweight battle. That could very easily be for a spot in the title game if it comes down to it and both teams are playing at a high level as the year goes on. And if that one's not, maybe the one after that is. So Tulane
pretty
still has
grueling way to end the year.
Everything in front of them. Everything is still in front of them, goal-wise, but also schedule-wise and challenges. So it will be interesting. Luckily, they're probably their top 3 matchups remaining. 2 of those 3 are on the road, but they get one of them at home to end it out before going into an interesting matchup, whether that's the conference championship game, postseason, whatever it may be. They'll have some time in between. But, man, this is a good Tulane football team. I'm not ready to say that it's the Tulane team of 2 years ago that's winning the Cotton Bowl and making their way to a college football playoff mention. They've still got a ways to go for that, and they've got to run the table if they're even in that conversation. But the way that they played against Kansas State and Oklahoma and the way they started conference play, very encouraging for the Green Wave.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that challenger tier, right? And I do still think South Florida is a part of that tier.
I can
No
see
question.
that. If they're healthy, that's the one thing.
So, okay, this is a bye week for them. So luckily they sort of get to reset, get healthy. But for you, in your eyes, as you watch that Tulane game, what really needs to be fixed?
Ooh, a lot. And it's really the defensive side. They're banged up front. This is a great example of how a non-conference tough slate can actually hurt a team, because a lot of times you hear of, they played Alabama and Miami, 2 teams that are in the top 10 and 2 teams that they played really well for 3 quarters and took them into the 4th quarter against. That's great. All of that is good stuff as long as you stay healthy. And I think the durability of your team is being challenged right now. Luckily, they're going into a bye week, and I think this is a big thing for them. Get healthy. They didn't have any push up front. They did not control the line of scrimmage. I was shocked to see the way that Tulane dominated on the offensive line. This is a defensive line from South Florida that I was talking about 2 weeks ago should have had their way, or not even their way, but it should have had a challenge against Miami, and for 3 quarters they did. They did a nice job of limiting the speed and the athleticism of the Hurricanes initially before that 4th quarter kind of exploded. Well, that carried over, I think, a bit into the Tulane game. They were slower to the line of scrimmage. They did not control. They got pushed back, and because of that, that's what allowed for that team that Tulane team to have some success on the ground. And it doesn't get much easier, because now you've got to go up after the bye week. You go into Mario Anderson Jr. and you play Seth Hennigan and you play the Memphis Tigers, which is a team that likes to run the football and will, by the way, throw it around quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I think their bye week came at a really good time. In that Tulane game, we saw quarterback Byron Brown in the middle of the 3rd quarter gingerly walk off the field with a leg injury. As of right now, his status is unknown. And so, I do think they're a completely different team without Byron Brown. We talked about it at the beginning of the year. This was a preseason player of the year. I mean, even a player of the year potential when everything was said and done. So without him and the way that he is able to be such a dual threat to their offense, keeps defenses on their toes, it will certainly be a challenge. So their bye week, I don't think, could have come at a better time. Hopefully he is back and ready to go for the second half of the season. But yeah, I mean, still a lot of football left to be played, and definitely a good time for their bye week to come.
Yeah, this is a good thing for South Florida that it comes right now and that they're able to kind of get healthy. Now, there was another team that I think needed a bye week this week. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but we will talk about their matchup. How about East Carolina defeating UTSA? UTSA is the team that I'm referencing, but it was about the Pirates that say, when we win, we sing. Let's listen to this just for a second.
Those are the sounds you love to hear in the locker room.
I love it. I love it. ECU Pirates get the job done 30-20 over UTSA. And in this matchup, I thought UTSA had a shot early. They had an early lead. We're up by a couple double digits. They were up 10-0 at the half, or up by 10 at the half. And after ECU had 2 straight weeks of letting double-digit leads slip away, they finally took one back of their own, which was a little bit more of what I anticipated in the early going. What did you see out of this match?
Well, I think there was a lot of this East Carolina team really growing up and a lot of those growing pains, right? It's great when you can see a team learn from those mistakes and be able to respond. And this is a team with a whole lot of new players coming together, new coaches coming together. They have a new offensive coordinator with Coach Baker, but you finally were able to see a team with a lot of explosiveness in their offense. And even on the other side of it, too, I think their defense, they had a big 4th down stop in this game. But, a team that went through a lot of adversity, last season, just 2 wins. There's still a good amount of players from that team last year. Now they're playing confident and they're able to play through adversity. And you're seeing a team that has learned a lot, and they're continuing to take things with them each and every week. But it's a resilient group. And with a head coach like Mike Houston, he's going to have them ready to go every week. But there are some concerns, though, now that I have for UTSA.
Yeah. A lot of concerns for UTSA, I think, at this point. And I want to talk about ECU real quickly here. They were sloppy early. Yeah. They were inconsistent on offense. They gave up the big play on defense, and it allowed UTSA to kind of stay in the ball game. That's why they put them in a tough spot in that first half. Even on the touchdown drive, even on the opportunity for Jake Garcia and this offense to finally find their rhythm, it was inconsistent leading up to that. But once they clicked, once they found out, hey, let's get it to all of the weapons. Let's get it to Anthony Smith. Let's get it to Winston Wright Jr., Chase Sowell. All 3 of those guys have at least 200 yards on the season. Spread it around a little bit. That's when it started to take over, and that's what's scary. I've mentioned this before, but I'm a big fan of John David Baker, the new offensive coordinator for East Carolina. I think he does a phenomenal job, and he knows how the modern air raid kind of works, and he's utilized that when, like you said, growing pains with a quarterback like Garcia who will turn over the football every now and again. You've seen some similar things with North Texas and Chandler Morris turning over the football with an air raid. It's going to happen, but if you can take care of the football, explosions like what happened with East Carolina in the second half can happen. And that's exactly how UTSA was down. But let's talk about UTSA. You mentioned it there.
Yeah, I mean, both of these quarterbacks, Garcia and McCowan, they both had 2 interceptions. And you were talking about the aggressive style of play that East Carolina will play, right? Garcia's numbers, 17 of 35 with 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. But McCowan's numbers, the fact he threw the ball 49 times, 24 of 49. His QBR, 28.4. Definitely some issues all around offensively with this team. As you watched the tape, what was the number one thing that you thought stood out with the issues that they're facing?
A lot of inconsistencies across the board. And I mentioned this early in the season when they couldn't run the ball effectively. And even in a win against Kennesaw State, I said it worried me right off the jump. Well, they still haven't found that rhythm running the ball. Usually whenever they're putting up numbers, put up over 500 yards of offense last week, put up 456 yards of offense this week. They had these numbers. They have the game plan. The rushing attack just isn't efficient. And I also don't think the defense is either. I mean, this is a defense for UTSA that is bottom 20 in both scoring and total defense, and it's coming back to bite the Roadrunners. I think this is a team that really needed a bye week up to this point, and it's something that they've really needed to reset for a minute at 2-3. That's not what Jeff Traylor's bunch had in mind going into the year. A lot of people thought they could be even favorites in the American, along with those teams like Memphis, Navy, Army, and what they're doing. They thought UTSA was in that same category. They haven't even been close to that category
if
over the last couple weeks.
Serves me right. They were pick number 2 in the preseason poll. I mean, these were high expectations. Even losing Frank Harris, face of the franchise, you still had so much coming back.
Yeah, I wouldn't have disagreed. If you would have told me UTSA finishes second or third in the conference behind Memphis or Tulane before the season started, I wouldn't have disagreed. But I don't see any chance at that right now, the way that their tape is showing up. Even somebody said, how rude of you. I picked East Carolina last week. They were like, how rude of you to disrespect UTSA. I was like, I'm not disrespecting UTSA. I thought they would be better. I really did. I had high expectations for the Roadrunners. They just haven't met that, and I don't think that you could ask anybody in the Roadrunners organization in their program right now. If you went up to Jeff Traylor and said, are you playing the football you wanted to play as we enter into October, he would say absolutely not. There's a long way to go. Doesn't mean it's a lost cause. They still have talent. You just got to find a way to piece it all together after the bye week.
Absolutely. Well, another team in Texas that I also had higher expectations for that has not had a strong start to the season, and I don't see them really turning it around anytime soon. Unfortunately, the Rice Owls. Talk about Houston. We have a problem down there because Charlotte winning this game 21-20. It was a game-winning drive, though, by the 49ers. Talk about an exciting game that came down to literally the final seconds. What really stood out to you in that game?
Well, it's the fact that this game was so stale for the first 2 quarters. It was 3-0 at halftime, and it was just kind of a weird back and forth. It wasn't even like good defense. It was just bad offense through the first two quarters. But then all of a sudden, both teams figured it out. Yeah. Both teams clicked on offense, and they started rolling after halftime.
Charlotte making the change at quarterback, going from Trexler-Ivy to Deshaun Purdy, who we had talked about a few weeks earlier. We were surprised when Trexler-Ivy had come in, and we thought he earned the right to continue being that starting quarterback while Max Brown is out with the injury. But then he couldn't get anything going. So then you bring in Purdy, and there was a whole new spark for this 49ers team.
All sorts of it. And it looked like the freshman, we talked about growing up with East Carolina a couple minutes ago. Looked like the freshman grew up in his own right. He maybe took that experience. And, of course, we're not in the locker room. We're not in the building for Charlotte in this 49ers bunch. But it looked like he took that moment of being benched and kind of put to the side for Trexler-Ivy initially. He took that the right way, and you could see it from his efficiency. 10 of 15 passing, nearly 200 yards. That's all in the second half, of course, and started kind of figuring things out as it went along. They very easily could have laid down and lost again. On the road, had already come from behind to beat Gardner-Webb a couple weeks ago. They didn't do that. They rallied around Deshaun Purdy. They were able to find their stride late, and I was really impressed with the resilience that they showed. Most impressed by the grit that they showed on the final drive. They didn't convert early in the fourth quarter. They elected to punt the football away, trusted their defense. Defense got the ball back with just about 58 seconds left. Or it was a little bit more than 58 seconds, but it took them 58 seconds. 7 plays, 77 yards in 58 seconds to drive down, score, kick the PAT, go up 21-20. Defense almost gave a shot to Rice at the end. They had a chance at a long field goal, and he ended up missing it. But I was really impressed with the way that Charlotte could have laid down on the road. They didn't. They played good football down the stretch, and they ended up squeaking past Rice.
I think it was really cool, too, for the Charlotte offense to finally see a little bit of explosion. I think that was something that they had been, certainly lacked last year, but even this year at times. But, Purdy on that final drive, it was a 66-yard pass play on that first play of the drive. And then you look at the 2 touchdowns that he had in that game, 32 yards and 45 yards out.
They were both great throws, too.
Yeah, he has a great arm. And I covered a game earlier this year when they were playing North Carolina, and Max Brown goes down. He comes in, and the way he's built, get that kid in the weight room for another year, and he is a competitive Division I quarterback, just the way he looks on the field. Yeah. He's a very tall, lanky guy with a strong arm, and was able to lead his team to a really exciting victory that could continue to propel this Charlotte team as the season goes along. And it's all about riding that momentum, capturing the momentum, and then riding it. And that's something, that coach even talks about there at Charlotte as well.
Both of their wins have come that way, Gardner-Webb and Rice, and the fact that they kind of do rely on the big play, which they haven't necessarily gotten to this point other than late in the Rice matchup. So I'm interested to see who the quarterback is moving forward. Against Gardner-Webb, it was Drexler Ivey that provided the spark in the big play. Now, Deshaun Purdy, he returns the favor. He does bring that same kind of mentality after the win against Rice. I assume it's going to be Purdy because that was kind of the initial decision.
Right.
But going up against East Carolina this week, you don't have time to mess around with it. You got to keep pace with East Carolina. I mean, when I look at this game, Charlotte, even against Rice, a team that has struggled to stop opposing offenses, saw what they did against Army and a couple other things. The way that the 49ers have struggled to stop opposing offenses, I think, is going to play a factor. East Carolina is going to put up points. It's whether or not Charlotte and Deshaun Purdy can kind of move in the right direction and keep pace with the Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, East Carolina, we talked about showing significant improvement in their win over UTSA, but this is a little bit of a rivalry game, right? East Carolina, Charlotte, when Charlotte came into this conference, that was one of the things that, people really looked at as a new regional rivalry that could be created. And Charlotte won this game 10-7 last year.
Barn burner.
Yeah, but, I think it's going to be a different outcome this year, and I am picking the Pirates here.
I'm there with you.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. I think ECU's the more complete team right now. I like what Charlotte's done. There are some things that they're doing in the right way, but I just don't see them having the firepower in order to take it to the next level. Speaking of firepower, there was none better than the 50 burger that was put up by North Texas this week against Tulsa. Morgan, I know you're the biggest North Texas fan in the room by far, right? Like
we both have our green on.
Got
again,
a green,
right?
got a green on again. Yeah, makes it happen. This is the second game without Damon Ward, their best wide receiver. They've missed their top 3 running backs all year long, including Ikaika Ragsdale, who returned as one of the lone guys that had production in the past. Chandler Morris, with an injured throwing hand, was able to put up 52 points at home, 45 of which over the span of just 13 minutes of gameplay. And the fact that they were able to rout Tulsa the way that they did, I thought it was an impressive showing from the Mean Green.
Well, I think that is what is most impressive. You laid it out perfectly, just the injuries that they've had to deal with, but yet Chandler Morris is continuing to find a way despite who his playmakers are out on the field. He spread the ball around this weekend, 5 touchdown passes to 5 different receivers and without their main guy. So I think, again, for me, what obviously comes down to in so many football games, it's taking care of the football makes or breaks you. And turnovers were the difference in this game. And for Chandler Morris to, not have an interception in this game, he took a lot better care of the football. I think that was the story for me in this game. You look at, Kirk Francis's numbers, 13 of 29 with 2 interceptions. Again, I think that does speak to the defensive improvement we're seeing from North Texas, but definitely most impressed by the offense and Eric Morris. He's an offensive guru, offensive genius. I don't, in terms of who is out there on the field, he recruits talented guys. He has plenty of playmakers out there, but it is the scheme within this North Texas offense, I think, that is just so impressive.
Yeah, and I think we've got to take a look at some of the quick strike ability. The quick strike ability was one thing that, of course, we've talked about with Eric Morris and company, but how quick can it strike? How about James Westling on the call here for ESPN Plus this past weekend? I'll just let it play out.
Second down, and we'll call it 7. Some window dressing and a screenplay, and this guy has wheels. Conwright still on his feet. Touchdown, North Texas. "96 yards.
Now tied for the longest touchdown in American Conference history, longest pass play, that is. How about tying Houston? That was Clayton Tune to Marquez Stevenson. 2 guys that went to the next level, by the way. Both guys went to the NFL and had at least a cup of coffee in the league. Now it's up to Chandler Morris and Blair Conwright. 96 yards to the house off of a screenplay. But that's how Eric Morris's offense works. They spread out the defense. They keep them off balance. They weren't scoring up to that point at a high level, but from that moment forward, they just put on the gas. Let me give you the scenario. Down 3-0, 5 minutes to play. They score that touchdown. With 24 points over the next 5 minutes, they put this game away. With 21 seconds left, it took 2 plays to go 42 yards and score before the break. with 7 seconds left. They only needed a total of 14 seconds to do so. This is a legit offense, and they keep their foot on the gas. They are uber aggressive.
Oh, I like how you worked in that Uber right there.
Uber. Morgan Uber aggressive.
I think you blink and this team just puts up 7, right? It's crazy. But so they have a bye this week. And then their next 3 games, they have Florida Atlantic on the road. Then they go to Memphis, and then they host Tulane. There's no doubt in my mind with the way Florida Atlantic right now is struggling, and even having the bye to maybe get some of those guys back, get them healthy. But then, having Memphis and Tulane, as you look at, those 2 games, what are your thoughts? I mean, what does North Texas have to do? What is the X factor in your mind for them to come out on top?
Taking care of the football.
Yeah.
You can't turn it over. And we've seen that over the last few weeks. The one loss, North Texas is 4-1. They've got the bye week. They'll play Florida Atlantic. I think going into that game, their expectation is that they win that game and improve to 5-1 before playing 2 of the top teams in the conference. They got to keep taking care of the football. If North Texas takes care of the football and their defense maybe has a takeaway or 2, they steal a possession here and there, they're just as good as anybody else. That's why I put them in their challenging tier. Along with ECU, very similar scenarios between the Pirates and the Mean Green. If both of those teams can steal possessions as opposed to taking them and giving them to an opposing team, they are just as dangerous as Tulane and Memphis and Army and Navy in this conference, and they should be in that conversation. North Texas has the defense to do it. They're still in the bottom half of most rankings when it comes to total defense and scoring defense. That has to change. It won't change entirely because of how quick their offense works. They're going to give up points, part of it. You just can't give the football away. And I think all of a sudden you're talking about the Mean Green as a real contender in this league.
Yeah, I know you've been high on them all season.
Been trying to tell people.
Rightly so. But, a lot of teams that have buys this weekend. But let's take a look at what we got here with the upcoming schedule here as we head into week 6 of the college football season. We have Army at Tulsa, the Black Knights, who have just been rolling. Tulane coming off of their big win over South Florida. They'll be traveling down to UAB. We have Navy and Air Force, of course, a big one for the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy, the first leg for those 2 teams. East Carolina and Charlotte, a little regional rivalry that we've talked about. And then the one game we haven't talked about, Temple and UConn up in the Northeast there.
Yeah.
As you look at the schedule, what's the game you're most excited for this week in week 6?
Probably the Tulane UAB matchup. UAB needs a win really badly. Trent Dilfer and company weren't happy with the way that they played against Navy. I don't think a lot of that is their fault. I just think Navy is maybe underrated from a league-wide standpoint, but I think UAB is still a good football team that just hasn't figured things out yet. Whether they do so against Tulane or not, we'll see. I think that's going to be a tough ask before both of those teams end up going into their bye week. But, yeah, lots of teams that need wins playing against teams that have wins. And so I think at some point this week, we will see a big American upset. We'll see one of these teams that are not supposed to win play better football and ultimately squeak one out. It's college football. It's bound to happen at some point. I feel like this is a week where it's kind of weird, kind of in between bye weeks for a couple teams, couple programs back and forth. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big upset in this week.
Okay, so who's the upset that you're picking?
Don't put me. Why you got to ask the tough questions here? You know what? I think that's tough. Charlotte and ECU, just because they did it last year, that doesn't go away. Those are guys that have returners. Of course, Biff knows that you can win against ECU. ECU had the 2 wins last year. They're riding high. If Charlotte forces a couple turnovers, I think it could happen. I'm not going to make the call. I still think ECU wins that game, just like I said earlier. But if there were an upset, if there were one
watch
there, I think it should be upset watch for ECU. They've got to play a clean game. And in order to do so, they've got to, of course, go on the road and play well against the 49ers. I think that's a tighter game than we initially anticipated.
Okay, so let me ask you an easier question.
Okay.
Of all the teams that are on a bye this week, who do you think benefits most from that?
There's 2 that I have my eye on, and I'll leave one of them for you. But I'm going to say UTSA. I think UTSA is a team that we talked about it. No momentum off offense. Haven't given up on this team yet, nor should the Roadrunners give up on themselves. But they have been disappointing. Maybe the disappointment of the league to this point in the season. No way that this team should be ranked 101 in scoring, giving up 22 points per game, or scoring 22 points per game, and then 109 in scoring defense, giving up 32 points per game and being outscored on average by 10. I know a lot of that's from the Texas State game earlier in the year. I don't care. This is a Roadrunner team that should be better than what they're playing right now, and I think the bye week gives them a chance to press the reset button, figure out what you're doing at quarterback, figure out how to get your weapons involved, because you still have weapons, Jeff Traylor. I know it. It's going to happen at some point this year. I think it could happen after the bye week. UTSA, they've got Rice next week, a winnable game. Florida Atlantic, winnable game. Tulsa, winnable game. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going into week 10 and we're looking at UTSA as a 5-win team already, fighting for bowl eligibility, and that next real benchmark for UTSA is Memphis going into another bye week in week 11. So this is a 4-game stretch where they can figure it all out. If they don't play better, they may end up going 2-2 or 1-3. I think they should at least go 3-1, maybe 4-0 if they play well against Memphis. We'll see. But they've got to find a way to get back on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think South Florida, in my eyes, are definitely the one. We even talked about it when we were talking about them earlier after their loss to Tulane, just how much they need a bye with Byron Brown taking that injury in that third quarter, leg injury, Bryce Archie in at quarterback for him. They're not the same offense, without him. And I think if you're Alex Golesh, you wish maybe this bye could have come last week, the week before Tulane, to get conference play, right? We talked about the grueling schedule, the fact that they had Alabama on the road and then they host Miami. I mean, 2 quarterbacks with Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward. That defense, the offenses that they had to go up to earlier in this season, and just the battle in the trenches that these guys have been through. I think they really needed the bye week before conference play got started. But again, it's only 1 loss for them. When you look at the remainder of their schedule, they do have Memphis upcoming, which could be a big problem, but at least they have that at home at Raymond James Stadium. Then they have UAB at home. Then they'll travel to Florida Atlantic, which could be a little bit of a trap game, right? People are thinking Florida Atlantic, they're not the same team.
In-state rivalry, though.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, having played each other in high school, a lot of friends, right? But then the Navy game, November 9th, I think is going to be a really tough test. Luckily for them, that one also at home. So South Florida, I think they have one of the toughest schedules in the conference. The fact that they have to play, I mean, the only team they don't have to play is Army. But really, they have some really tough challenges coming up. But I think they could benefit from a bye, get some guys back, get some guys healthy, and get things rolling again on the right path. Like we know this offense can be. Alex Golesh, another great offensive mastermind. He'll get this team ready and geared up, ready to go for the rest of conference play.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that Army team, USF. They get to avoid Army, which is good. And so we get to talk about teams that need a bye. How about a quarterback that can fly?
First down, Daly. What a cut, what a hurdle. Look at Bryson Daly.
It's the quarterback lead, the shuffle. He lets the fullback get in front of him. Then he gets into the open field, one-on-one, sees the safety coming in, trying to go low. And he shows the quick feet athleticism. Getting right over the top, putting him down in the red zone. Look at this.
Darabelle right there just gets hopped right over.
The hurdle and all. Bryson Daly is the first Army player with 3 rushing TDs in back-to-back games since 2011, and he joins us right now here in Studio A. Bryson, your second year leading this offense at Army, what is different about the way that this team is just rolling right now?
I think guys trust in each other. They believe in each other, and they're playing really hard right now. And we're just trying to keep that rolling week to week, and guys are doing a great job.
Bryson, I want to ask, so I know that you play for Army. You're in the Army. But I didn't know there was an airborne division whenever you hurdle over defenders like that. I mean, what did you see on that play specifically that said, you know what, I'm not going to go around these guys, as you've done plenty of times this year. You're going to have some takeoff and get over the top.
Yeah, I'd actually seen their secondary kind of go low on a running back Kanye a couple times, and hit him in the calf, hit him in the thigh, and I was like, that doesn't look like it feels very good. So I'm try to avoid that. And I guess the last second decision was just to jump over him.
You mentioned Kanye, the game he had last week against Temple. Just what's it like to have him on your team and to be able to have a guy, like you said, you trust and can hand the ball off to?
Yeah, Kanye's awesome. He's a special player. I love that we have him on our team and that our defense isn't having to tackle him because guys have had a lot of trouble tackling him this year. He's a really good player. Takes a lot of pressure off me and the rest of the guys in the offense. It's nice just to stand back and hand him the rock a few times.
How has your development from really a relationship standpoint with Cody Worley started to grow as an offensive coordinator in his first season? Like we talked about, you've been around this system a little bit, but to see him take over and see this offense take off at the same time, I mean, how has that communication and that relationship grown?
Yeah, it's been an absolute blessing to have Coach Worley my whole time since I've been at the prep school all the way until now. He's been my quarterback coach, which is pretty rare in college football, having a position coach that long. But I've been very lucky, and our relationship has grown a lot because of that. And I was so happy for him when he got the OC job, and he's doing a great job making it really easy for me out there. But our relationship has definitely helped and contributed a lot to the success we've had so far.
I want to take you back to Abernathy, Texas. When you were in high school, you had 8 Division I offers, but you chose Army. Why?
For a lot of reasons. It was a great education, big time football. But really when I came on my visit, I met a bunch of guys who were just like me. A lot of hardworking guys that just cared about football. They were good guys, and I just felt at home when I came here. And so, yeah, after that visit, I committed, and I was all in after that.
You've talked about having no family in the military, having no idea what to expect and what to prepare for. Now that you've been at Army, these past several years, what is it that has surprised you the most that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I'm surprised every day. Just because I'm a senior now, it doesn't mean I have this Army thing figured out. I wake up and learn something new every day about the Army, about the military. So, yeah, those, you go into beast barracks and stuff, which is like our basic training. That was the most eye-opening experience, of course, just because that's where you're taking everything in through a fire hose, and it was a lot. But, yeah, I learned something new every day for sure.
One of the things about this Army squad is the fact that it is a brotherhood, not only on the football field, but off of it. I mean, how much has that helped you out as an individual to grow with the guys that are around you?
It just builds trust. I trust these guys around me so much, and hopefully they trust me as well. Just going through the hard times that we go through here with each other, sleeping out in the field, just doing hard things in the Corps. You do it with your brothers. It shows up on the football field with how much we trust each other, how much we love each other. So that's been great for this team.
And you could see that in the celebrations after scoring touchdowns and winning football games and the way that you guys grow. What would it mean for this program, of course, first year in the American Athletic Conference, to continue this success and to take home a conference championship as the year goes on? I know we're looking way far ahead, and I know you probably don't want to do so, but what would it mean to achieve those goals?
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Our goal is 1-0 every week. Try to take things one thing at a time, not look at the bigger picture. And we've done a great job of that so far. So just continuing to go 1-0 every week. We're really going to like the outcome, and that would just be huge for this team to just keep this thing rolling.
Bryson, I know most players say they don't read the clippings, they don't read what's out there on social media, but your name right now being, named amongst Heisman names, number 5 on that Heisman list right now, according to ESPN. When you hear those words come out of my mouth, what goes through your mind?
I think it just goes back to all the hard work that we put in through the offseason, through the summer. And it's really great testament to our O-line and how well they're playing right now. A slow guy like me, rushing for as many yards as I rush for, I'm running behind some really good O-line if that's happening. So I think it's a testament to them, testament to our coaching staff. So that's the main thing on that.
No, and you look at some of these season numbers and the way that you guys are running the football, not only as an individual, but as a whole. It opens things up for this offense, and especially for you as a quarterback. How much does it help knowing that you can run the football as effectively as you've wanted to all year long, but also the passing game is still there as an option and an opportunity for you to continue taking your game to the next level.
Yeah, the rush game and pass game, they build off each other. If we're running the ball really well, you're going to have to start bringing secondary guys to fit in the box. And that's when, we're going to hit play action over the top. And, we have weapons out there, too, that are really making plays right now. Casey Reynolds, Noah Short, all those guys like that. When the passing game is good, you have to respect it.
Yeah. And
it helps us with the ball. So if we can just keep those two parts of the game working well off each other, we're going to have a successful offense. And we're just going to try to keep that going.
Your offense obviously getting a whole lot of attention, but your defense has been stellar this season as well. When you guys were going, best versus best this summer, what was it this fall camp? What did you really learn, develop by going up against your defense?
Yeah, they made us a lot better. They made our O-line a lot better just going against them every day because, they're, just like we pride ourselves on being tough on offense, they're tough as nails on defense. Their bend, don't break mentality has shown up all season long, and going against them every day in practice makes us so much better. They're taking a lot of pressure off of us right now because we know if we don't convert on offense, that they're going to stop them on defense. We're going to get the ball right back. So that feels great as a quarterback knowing you have that defense behind you as well. And those guys are going to keep it up. Coach Woody really has those guys rolling right now. And I love to see it.
Man, they're fun to watch. And it does add to the ambiance and the physicality and the brotherhood that this team builds. But there's also a bit of a rivalry starting to brew, and it doesn't even take place until December with you guys being 4-0, Navy being 4-0. I know at the end of the day you're all in the military academy life together, but there's such a tension between the two on the football field. What's it been like seeing them kind of across the way doing what they're doing and you guys having the success that you have so far?
Yeah, they're playing well right now too. But that's something, we're saying beat Navy throughout the off season, throughout the summer. And, that doesn't change, week to week. We still break down on beat Navy sometimes. And so, yeah, we're gearing up every game, all of these games to get ready for them, get ready for that other school down in Colorado, and just getting ready to beat those guys because those are the big ones at the end of the year.
Yeah, we know how much that Commander-in-Chief's trophy means. Coach Munkin talking about it at Media Day. We're in a conference now. A conference championship would be great, but nothing means more than that Commander-in-Chief's trophy. And it's pretty cool, Bryson. The last time that Army and Navy were both 4-0, you have to go all the way back to the year 1945. Pretty mind-blowing. So we figured, let's test your knowledge in trivia about, some fun things that have gone on since 1945. So first question for you. How many times has Army beaten Navy since 1945? Take a guess. I'll put Kyle on the spot as well.
Oh, gosh.
1945.
Are you doing mental math in your head right now? I'm doing the same thing. Like how many
engineering
years
major, the numbers are spinning. I can see it.
It's 45. I'm gonna go 50.
Oh, okay. See, I was kind of around there. I was thinking 45.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Both of y'all were pretty way off.
Oh.
Only 32 times. But that number, hey, there's potential for that to grow here.
That's
maybe.
shocking.
But
32 out of that many years?
Yeah, we were so good in the 40s and the 50s.
That's a good one.
all right. Well, let's try another one here. How many Heisman winners has Army had since the year 1945? And it's multiple. It's multiple.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint.
I think it's since 1945. Do you count 1945?
Yes, counting 1945, correct.
Ooh, you've got it, I think.
Yeah.
I'd say 3 then.
Yeah. There we go.
I was going to say 3 as well. So,
Okay.
yeah, we got that one
You
right.
guys got
Nicely
it?
done.
Thought that was
Can
a
you
trick
name all 3 of them?
Yes, Pete Dawkins.
You know what year?
Pete Dawkins was 58.
Nice.
Wow.
Doc Blanchard.
Okay. And he was what year?
He was 45.
There
correct?
you go. 2 for 2. Can you name the third one?
It was Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside. God. Glenn Davis.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you know what year he
44?
was?
Was he 44?
Close.
No, he's 40. He's 46. I
There
just
you go.
answered that.
Okay, very nicely done.
Hey, Heisman history. That's a check.
Hey, that helps me improve. If I were a media voter, if I were a Heisman voter, knowing that you know the history of your organization, your franchise, and the way that they've had success in the Heisman voting before, I think that would just help me.
All right, we need to
elevate it.
clip this.
Yeah, we're going to send it off to the Heisman committee. We got you. Don't worry, Bryson. We got you.
Good.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Well, how about a few things maybe that weren't invented yet in 1945? Kyle did this research, so I know he knows this already.
This is kind of just added context of how long it's been since both teams were 4-0. But how about a chainsaw? A chainsaw was yet to be invented. You think about how usual that is. Same thing with a CB radio. It was invented actually in 1945. That's in almost every truck and bus and whatever it may be along the way. A ballpoint pen, Bryson. This hasn't happened since the invention of the ballpoint pen. I mean, that's pretty wild. And then the last one I'll give you, how about a microwave oven? Microwave
Thank
oven
goodness
in
for
there,
microwave
too. Thank
ovens.
goodness. Who would have ever thought that?
We're going to
would have
send
never
you
been
all
the
these
case.
gifts. If that's well, I don't know. Compliance might not like that, but
We'll get with it. We'll get with it. We'll send you a gift basket with all these things in it, except for the chainsaw. I feel like that would be pretty weird. That would be weird.
That's the one I wanted the most.
Okay, I guess we can make it happen, Bryson. Only for you, though. Only for you.
Sweet.
Bryson, one last one before we let you go here. In terms of just what this Army team is set out to do, when you look at just the X factor to sustaining the success the rest of this season, what does it come down to in your mind?
I think just like I said, take everything one game at a time. Just because we're winning, we need to keep doing the things that made us win. Don't start thinking we're better than we are. Don't start thinking we're something that we're not. Just remember who we are as a team, as a unit, and just keep doing the things we were doing at the start of the season to make us win. Don't get away from who we are.
Well, Bryson, we know you have a very busy schedule, everything at Army, at West Point, very rigorous to the minute. So we are going to let you go here and looking forward to seeing what you guys can continue doing this season. It's been a lot of fun to watch, that's for sure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, guys.
How awesome was Bryson Daly? I loved how much fun he had with that trivia and also how spot on he was. Pretty impressive, too.
Yeah, I feel like I may have been a little bit too forward with talking about a chainsaw and a gift basket. That's unfortunate on my side, and I think he's fine. I think he handled it well, just like he's handled tough situations on the football field this year. He's been able to just rattle through it and power through, and that's part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I wish we had a gift basket. Speaking of gift baskets, we can at least give a warm welcome to the newest member here at the American Athletic Conference, Maria Trivalpiece, the new director of video communications and reporter. I have an honor of passing the torch to Maria, a very talented reporter, producer, host, content creator. She can do it all and is going to make her mark here and tell some outstanding stories on student athletes, as she has done for the past several years working from the Patriot League. And so awesome to have her down here in Texas. Maria, I think the best way to get to know someone is to talk about what your walk-up song would be, and how fitting because you also played college softball at Fordham. So putting you on the spot here, what would your walk-up song be?
Walk-up song, September by Earth, Wind and Fire. It is my favorite song. On September 21st, I actually get texts from my former teammates. They call it Maria Day. So if anybody would like to send some messages next September 21st, I'll be taking all requests for sure.
I like it. You could have done like Dear Maria, Count Me In. You could have done something like
missed
that.
Opportunity there.
That's
for
okay.
Sure.
It's fine. I agree with you on September. I was a Earth, Wind, and Fire guy. I love me some Stevie Wonder. So I'm right there with you. There with you. I think that's a phenomenal choice. I want to hear about your background, though. Morgan just mentioned, of course, coming over from the Patriot League. Really excited to see the type of coverage you'll provide to the American Athletic. What's your background in collegiate athletics, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as Morgan already mentioned, I played college softball at Fordham. I did a grad year at Syracuse where I was a graduate assistant coach. So that was my playing and coaching days. And then I just wanted to be in front of the camera, getting the opportunity to tell the stories of student athletes. And so that's what I was able to do at the Patriot League. I'm so excited to do it here at the American Athletic Conference from a variety of different standpoints. So a little bit about me, and I'm excited to get started here.
I think it's really cool with our ties with the Patriot League, having covered Army and Navy. They're in the Patriot League for everything except football. And then you come here and get to make that transition. Army and Navy, you still get to talk to those SIDs. Hopefully you still still get to go back up to West Point and Annapolis at some point. But as you look at all the opportunities that are laid out in front of you, this beautiful studio we have here, what is it that you're most excited about in this new role, Maria?
Oh, I'm excited about a lot of things. And I just want to say that I'm going to take credit if Army and Navy continue to do well. I am the good luck charm for them for sure. But I'm definitely excited just to continue to watch the success that they've been having. In addition to that, just some of the fall sport championships coming up. We talked about basketball media days, and I'm very excited for softball season. I'm sure everyone's going to get very sick of me talking about it, but that's something I cannot wait for.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You guys have covered the Patriot League. I haven't. I've covered the Patriots, if that counts. I mean, I've gotten
close enough, right?
Close enough,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
Same region.
whatever
Yeah.
it ends up being.
Basically.
All right. So with that being said, I know you've already had your eyes all over the American Athletic Conference. What are some of the best things you've seen so far?
Ooh, we were doing best things. I'm going to talk about the best things on social media
Okay.
that I've seen so far.
That works.
So we have a couple different things that we've been looking at. Starting off with the Charlotte men's basketball schedule release. So they took all of their home games and they put different boxes of cereal based on their opponent. So you see right there, that's obviously for their matchup against Temple. But I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think about some of those releases? I know you had a chance to maybe look at a couple of them, but
Yeah, I think basketball schedule release. I love the creativity, of these teams. This one's great. Fiber One. Ooh, when I think of cereals, that one's definitely at the bottom of the barrel. So I guess if you're talking opponents,
I hope they're not a sponsor. Sorry.
Yeah.
that would
Sorry,
not be
Fiber
good.
One. Yeah.
Definitely not. They had a crispy rice one for their matchup against Rice
Nice.
as well. Yeah. So really getting creative. Charlotte men's basketball. Also, we had some volleyball getting excited as well. Let this one play out really quickly. Just watch till the end. I loved this.
Wait, do you mind tapping the screen?
First of all, just the execution and acting of it, like to do that with your teammates, I loved. And I think somebody commented on it, like in this economy, you need to tip for everything. So, really.
I would agree with that.
Right?
20% always at all costs.
20. So how much would you tip your setter, Morgan?
Gosh, that's a good question. So it's funny. Volleyball is one sport I have never played in my life. I'm terrible at volleyball. But if they're a pretty good teammate, they're setting me up for success. I mean, is it a game-winning match point? I guess it depends on the situation. But maybe
Couple bucks, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say $20.
20%.
Yeah,
Whatever you got to do. Yeah,
right?
$20. Wow, yeah, that'd be big.
Ooh.
I mean, I will say, so my sister actually played at North Texas for 4 years, and she was a middle blocker, so she wasn't really the one setting. She was the one benefiting from the setters. And a lot of the time she said a set can either make or break an entire team. So I think you should tip them 25% of whatever it may be. I think go
Above
a little
and
bit
beyond.
further, above and beyond, just because of the service, right? If they're setting, they're serving, doing all sorts of
see what you
different
did
things.
there.
Yeah, volleyball puns. I'm all for it.
We love that. We love all of the different puns, and we love the creativity of all of our schools, especially Charlotte doing some more things this past weekend.
Ooh.
So the Stomega Blake, they beat Rice. You guys already talked about it a little bit. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory what's going on here.
Yeah, the chef let him cook and
Doing it with the
cooking
rice, too?
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of rice? You use sticky rice, fried rice?
Okay, so if we're gonna get
Tex-Mex?
real specific,
Yeah.
my favorite rice is Trader Joe's frozen brown rice. We have it every Monday with salmon. So yeah, I'm a big
Interesting.
Trader Joe's brown rice girl. Also love fried rice, chicken fried rice in particular. Also from Trader Joe's. Sorry, I know we're giving some free pub, but
See, I know this is your last episode,
Yeah.
but wrong answer. It's supposed to be rice owls, but that's fine.
Right.
It's cool. And Charlotte, it's not their favorite either. So as you can see here, that's what it ends up being.
You mentioned the Rice Owls. Speaking of owls, Army had, as you guys already talked about a little bit, some fun with a couple of the owls so far. So you see, this was before they actually beat Temple, but then they also put out another graphic even later that said September was a hoot. Some more puns. We love it. So again, Army very victorious against the Owls, and I really like that Army social team, creative team coming up with some of these graphics.
well, one's a company, two's a crowd, and three's a party, right? 3 owls in this conference. Yeah, I remember when we, the new school changes, adding the new schools, and that was something that always came to mind was, wow, we're going to be the conference of owls.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't get old.
And luckily, I already got it taken care of. Rich told us earlier in the show that they're not worried whenever they don't play Owls. So he thinks he's good going up against Blazers and Hurricanes and Dragons and Pirates and whatever it may be. lots of fun still to be had for that Army football team.
For sure, and we'll talk a lot more about it. And you guys have been covering not only Army, but the entirety of the American Athletic Conference before I even got here. This was one clip that you certainly had a lot of fun with. So, Kyle asked Morgan earlier, does she know what that celebration is? So I think you learned now, Morgan. Can you clue us in on what North Texas is doing in this clip?
DTA. Don't trust anybody. Stone Cold Steve Austin. All right, I don't trust you, Matt Sizik, back in the back, setting me up, trying to set me up for failure. DTA, and that's all I got to say about that.
Yes. Let's go. We're all about learning and adapting on this show. It's in-depth coverage around the best conference that you've got. And how about that? I love it. Best celebration, best reaction. Thank you, Morgan.
I wish I had some water bottles right now. I would stand up on this chair, mash them together.
That would be really good TV. I would have loved to see that on my first day.
I've got two over there. You want to make it happen?
That's all right.
I can get up.
I think we might break some equipment.
Yeah,
and that better,
I don't want to do that on Matt's last day either.
No.
Might not be the best idea.
But
sure.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, I am now well versed. So.
Yes. So those are some of my favorite things that I got to see on social throughout the American. We'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the entirety of the year as well. So really like what the social teams are doing and what you guys have done so far here in studio.
No doubt about it. Maria, we're so excited to have you on the show starting full-time next week. And before we let you go, I do want to give Morgan and Matt Sizik in the back their flowers. And this is my opportunity before we get into top plays. Both of you guys have done not only tremendous stuff within the American Athletic Conference on and off the air from an on-air talent standpoint, from a production standpoint. You guys are both phenomenal people off the air as well. And I appreciate you guys for welcoming me into the show, allowing me to have a hand in the American Athletic Conference as well. We're certainly going to miss both of you guys. And I don't think the fans at home really appreciate everything that you guys do for the conference enough. They appreciate it, no doubt about it, but what you guys do is really tremendous, and Maria's just going to take that torch and run with it. Zach in the back is going to take it and run with it as well. We're really excited about y'all's future, and then, of course, about Maria's future here with the conference as well. So with that being said, it's time now. You said your favorite things in terms of September. Here's my favorite things and Morgan's favorite things and the American Conference favorite things in the past week. We've got some top plays to get to. Let's start things off on the gridiron. I've got this one all queued up. We talked about it early on. If you think watching teams run the triple option is boring, think again. You haven't watched Bryson Daly and the Army Black Knights. Daly goes Saley over the top. The first down, he finishes with a whopping 152 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, Morgan.
He's soaring and flying, I think, as they said in High School Musical. Bryson Daly, he is the man. This guy can do it all. I mean, in the classroom, in the military academy, right? And the way that he has played football this season, his interview with us was just phenomenal. And man, I think, he can hurdle anybody. Nothing can be stopped.
Talked about it earlier, the airborne division of the Army. Didn't know there was one, but we've got one now, Maria.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, when I watched this play too, I was like, that literally looked like a hurdler. You know, we talked about some other of our multi-sport student athletes in the American. I think maybe Bryson Daly should see if he can run track.
Ooh, I like that idea.
I think he'd be pretty good. But as we stick on the gridiron, we head to UTSA at East Carolina at number 4. And this is an East Carolina team, as we talked about, much improved offensively because of this guy, Jake Garcia, with the play action as he takes a deep shot to Yannick Smith and the one-handed grab by the freshman. A true freshman, by the way, y'all. A tug of the jersey, no problem. And this is a catch the Pirate will treasure for years to come. You see what I did there?
Another pun. I love it.
Always here for it. And always here for true freshmen showing out at home. Great environment. Ended up with a big win. That is a tough play. Falling to the ground, almost horizontal to the ground, and still being able to track that football down with a defender draped all over him. That's a phenomenal play from the freshman. Moving into number 3, one thing you might not know about me, Morgan, is I love to watch talented tight ends on the football field. How about Elijah Mahoro? He's just bounding off of defenders. Watch this. Boom. Doesn't get him. Boom. Doesn't get him again. Got one more shot at it. Not going to happen on this occasion. Bounding off of the off of the Charlotte 49ers, scoring a crucial touchdown for the Rice Owls. That's determination to get the job done.
You know what that reminds me of, Kyle? Me bowling, watching the bowling ball go off the bumpers, right? He just goes off one guy, off the other guy, and then just ends up finding a way.
That's
and
a separate conversation.
I still play with bumpers, so judge me.
Me too, Morgan. It's okay. I'm on the same page with that one as well. So
there you go.
We can bowl together.
Yeah, a wrecking machine. Pretty
Bumper
impressive.
Mahoro as the tight end. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna stick.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. What about number 2?
Well, how about we head to the pitch? We've got North Texas women's soccer. Kyle's gonna like this one.
Oh yeah.
Another true freshman, as Claire Niedermeyer in this game scores a hat trick, 3 goals in a 17-minute span. Niedermeyer have a night as she accounts for half of the goals in the 6-0 win over the Owls.
I love it whenever we're able to sprinkle in some soccer, especially whenever it's North Texas. This win, by the way, is 6-0 advantage for North Texas. John Hedlund's 400th career win. We'll talk about that momentarily, but a big-time milestone. Only the 20th coach to ever reach that milestone in women's soccer. All right, moving from number 2
top play
to number 1. We just went from one North Texas sport to the other North Texas sport. How about this? From their own 4-yard line, Chandler Morris and company, with their back against the wall, breathing down the neck of their goal line. Down by 3, no problem. Blair Conrad on the outside takes a couple of steps, and now he's off to the races, breaking a couple tackles in the process. 96 yards, tied for the longest touchdown pass, longest pass play in general in the American Conference history, longest touchdown ever at DATQ Stadium, an entire momentum shift for the football game between North Texas and Tulsa as they go on to win at 52 points on the board on Saturday.
Rewriting history. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that from the Eric Morris to Chandler Morris, that Morris-Morris duo, and what this offense is doing this year, going down in the history books. Definitely one to remember and worthy of our number 1 play this week, no doubt.
North Texas in number 2 and number 1. You would think it's my last show that you guys are putting that all together for me. Not the case. Not the case. I'm not going anywhere yet. All right, speaking of North Texas, there's a lot of North Texas to talk about. I mentioned John Hedlund, 400 wins in his entire career as the head women's soccer coach at North Texas. It doesn't matter who reaches a milestone of 400 wins, Morgan. That's impressive no matter what sport you're in.
Absolutely. I mean, that's right up there, up there with another guy who I would like to take some time to honor before we sign off today, and who has done some incredible things here in his history at the American Athletic Conference. It is Matt Sizek's final day, the Director of Video Communications and Broadcast Services here at the American. And I don't think people realize how many late nights and early mornings that Matt spent pouring his heart in everything he had here into the American. Everything that you see inside this studio is really a tribute to him and his work over the past 3 years here. Every project, every show, anything that he touched, he made better. And this conference, no doubt, is better because of Matt. And I wish him well in his next adventure. And I know he will continue doing great things. And the American won't be the same without him, but it's better because of him. And, also a shout out to his wife, Brittany Sizek, who had to put up with lots of nights not having Matt at home. And again, I just don't think people realize in college athletics how much time we have to be sometimes, away from our families, away from hobbies and things that we love. And just, a round of applause to Matt and for everything he did, and wish him nothing but the best.
No doubt about it. We're certainly going to miss Matt and everything that he's done. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Nobody better in the business. We're excited about him. We're excited about you, of course, at the ACC Network, still covering collegiate athletics. You'll be around. I feel like this is a finale, but it's also a swan song for you as well. You got a long way to go. We're excited about you moving forward, but we're also excited about having Maria back in the fold and having her really starting full-time next week. Maria, excited to have you as a part of the team. Can't wait to talk All-American football coming up over the next couple of months. And then, of course, basketball season not too far away as well. So lots to look forward to around the American, even with some of our favorites moving on and doing bigger and better things.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't wait to watch the two of you in these chairs is next week, and there's no one that will be a bigger cheerleader and bigger supporters for you two and this entire conference.
Can't wait.
As time continues to go by, the American has always had and will always have a special place in my heart. You know, I had the opportunity to work here 3 years full time and then have been able to do this show for the past 5 weeks with you, Kyle. It has been such a joy, and I feel like I've become so much better at my job by working with you. Truly, I think
because you've got to carry the show. That's why. That's all it is.
No, your good humor brings out the best in me, and I'm excited to see the bond and chemistry that you and Maria have.
It's gonna be
and
awesome.
Maria, excited to officially pass the torch and let you continue, doing great things here at the American, telling some great stories, and continue just spotlighting this conference and realizing and helping, fans across the country realize just how great these programs are. I think a lot of the times people, Mike Oresco in his time here as commissioner and Tim Pernetti now taking the reins, really being that power conference, and we can compete with anyone. Our schools, our programs, not just football, but basketball, softball, baseball. I can't wait for you to continue covering these teams. And, with that being said, for one final time from Studio A, the American Athletic Conference, for my partner Kyle Youmans, for Maria Trival-Peace in her exciting new venture, for Zach Fisher in the back, for Matt Sizik in the back, one last time, so long and farewell here from All American, and I can't wait to continue cheering on this conference for the rest of my career.